Welcome to Circle Live. Today on the show, our guest is Fiona Humberstone, author of How to Style Your Brand. Fiona will be talking to us about why you should enjoy your work, why online courses shouldn't be made in just an hour, and why there will always be people who want the bobbin lamp. Stay with us. Was there a tipping point for you in your client work where you were realizing I should be teaching this rather than just doing this?
So to start with, when I went back to work, it was very much around creative direction, which played to my strengths. And that's the key thing from my perspective that needs to come into this whole conversation. So it's all well and good thinking about time for money, and it's all well and good thinking about there being a cap. I have two priorities in my life. I don't come from money. So the first priority was to provide my kids with a really nice, comfortable life and to give them the kind of opportunities that I didn't have as a child and to create a legacy for them. The second thing, and the thing that I don't think we talk about enough, is I wanted to enjoy the process while I was doing it. So, how I spend my time really matters to me. It affects how I show up as a mum, as a wife, as a friend. So, to answer your question, I went back to work in 2015, published my first book. That flew. I never expected to be able to pay the mortgage with a book. I could. It was phenomenal for a couple of years. Last year, I sold £13.50 worth of books. These things, they ebb and they flow. And I was doing the creative direction on the side. The first online course was ahead of the curve. So the first online course I did was a color psychology course. And it didn't come from this narrative that we now have around time for money. It came from this space of people are asking me loads of questions about color psychology. I was running workshops, so I was doing them in London. I ran some in Estonia and I ran one in New York, which was amazing. But I couldn't teach everyone everywhere. And I thought actually there are some really big benefits to learning online. So there's great things about doing workshops in person, but actually online allows you to access the material in a different way. So for me, it was never about the time for money thing. It was always about serving my audience.
You have such a great way of articulating your design decisions. And I think that is maybe a part of why you had so many people coming to you asking these questions, because they knew that you'd be able to easily, articulate an answer. Did it always come so easy for you? Is that just something natural? Is that something you developed over time?
I think I've always liked teaching. So even in my first job, um, my favorite part of the job was the training, the development, the designing the training. Now, my favorite part of the job is the design, the creativity, the visioning, the creative direction. But I was working for a print company, so opportunities for creativity were limited. So the teaching part of it became the most interesting piece. And communication's always been a key part of what I've liked doing.
When you don't care about something, it's very clear, especially when you're on camera, that you don't care about it. So how did you find a way to make sure that everything you were teaching, everything that you in the development of this was something that you cared about doing?
I've always followed my instinct ever since I had my eldest daughter Ellie when I was 25, which was much earlier than we planned. So as soon as I went back to work, I felt like if I've got to be away from her, then I need to be doing something that I'm enjoying. Otherwise, there's no point. And that ethos has stayed with me. She's 22 now. And I still feel I love my work and I love my kids seeing me love my work. So, always leaning into what's inspiring me, what am I hearing that people need? Whatever you do, you create a brief for it. You create a very clear set of parameters. What problem is it answering? And how do we get people there in the most robust, efficient, inspired, elegant way? So, for something like my art directing photography course, I give people, we think about the robustness of the process. Where do we need to get people from and to? So, what issues are they coming in with when they're planning their photography? And how can we make sure that at the end of this course, they have a really creative, robust, targeted plan for their photos? How can we make sure they enjoy the process? And how do we make sure that they do no more and no less work than is needed? And one of the things I've really noticed that's really ramped up over the last 12 months is the amount of patience people have for doing their own thinking has almost evaporated.
Interesting. Do you think that that's, last time we talked about how you're not a big fan of AI. Do you think that that's part of that?
I'm even less now.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's huge. And then people started seeing adverts for, just put your birth date in my AI and it will chuck out a brand strategy for you. We know that AI is not competing with a bespoke brand strategy, but it's going to take the world a bit of a minute to catch up with that. I think it's already changing, funnily enough. I think people are starting to see the limitations. When you're trying to come up with a strategy for your brand, it's quite overwhelming, it's quite frustrating. AI comes along and says, shall I write a strategy for you? Shall I give you a strap line? Shall I create a photo shoot plan? And it all seems amazing until a few weeks later you realize 5 of your competitors are saying the exact same thing, and actually it's leaving you feeling a bit dead inside.
Dead inside. I just love that we just went there. You know what I mean? I'm curious what challenges you've run into in that process, translating processes or knowledge that maybe comes so naturally to you into something that's digestible for people to then learn through the course.
I take a lot of care, I invest a lot of money in making sure that my courses, my processes are robust. So that is both in terms of, does this worksheet work? Does this process work? But also, is everything in the right order? And that is as simple and as difficult as brainstorming out all my lessons, not being afraid to throw things away, to rewrite them, to add them in, to shift out the order. It comes down to thinking about muses. So every course that I create, I have 4 or 5 core muses. So who are the people that are struggling with this most? What are their problems? Where are they going wrong? What do I know that if they just understood this, did this, thought about this differently, would change their brand, their business, how they approach this? Is Trish going to get this? Is she going to understand? Is this going to cover where Trish is going wrong? Or do we need to add another question in or do another worksheet? So it's thinking about it really robustly. We think about things through now. We didn't in 2016, but now I think about things through a neurodivergence lens as well. So how is this going to work for different brain processing types?
Thinking about how you operated from only having a few hours a day to dedicate to your work and choosing the work that felt like a priority to you clearly has brought you joy and has kind of made your day fulfilling and nourishing. I'm curious, kind of in choosing and being picky about how you spend your time, what have you had to say no to?
When I say yes to going to Scotland to rebrand an estate, which is what I did before Easter, I'm saying no to making 6 figures on my next online course launch. When I focus in on selling online courses, I'm saying no to the creativity and the joy and the connection that comes from working with the botanical skincare client that I'm working with now. So you're always saying no to something, I think. And what I try and do is follow my commercial instinct for where the work is at the moment. I've been through multiple iterations of the same business, and different things are easier, and that's quite hard to navigate when the noise incessantly is coming at you from people with courses to sell saying, I just made 7 figures in an hour, come buy my course and you should be doing the same. Like, it's quite hard to go, yeah, but I'm quite happy over here.
I bet that there have been some no's you've said, there's some yeses you've said, there's maybe been some mistakes that you've made that have eventually made great course content, because you can speak to your own experience and say, this is what I've learned through making that decision.
Yeah. Like my design agency third baby is the biggest source of mining of information, because I did 4 or 5 years of that before we learned about color psychology, and then that was the thing that transformed my process. So all of those cock-ups, all of those misdirects, and then all of that learning as we were bedding it all in is massive.
And that's why I think also an AI could never release an online course, because an AI doesn't have that experience. You know, you can come to the
You'd
camera.
be surprised. People are genuinely
Yeah.
saying I can knock you out an online course in an hour, which does no one any favors. But
I don't believe that. I think that, as we were saying before, that there's going to be limitations to that, because the experience that you bring to the camera is going to be just so much more valuable than any LLM can say. An LLM wants to get it right. You want to share your experience.
yeah, you know what? I had this realization a few weeks ago. I was looking at a bobbin lamp, and I thought to myself, there's a lovely guy in Sussex in England, Alfred Newell he's called, and he makes these beautiful hand-turned bobbin lamps. They're gorgeous. And I don't know what they cost, £300-400, I think. Or we can go to Dunelm or Target and we can get one for $20. Now, there will be people that want the $20 lamp and then they'll throw it out next year. So I'm not sure it's necessarily an affordability thing. I think it is affordability, but I think there's also people over here that want to buy the handmade lamp and they want to keep it and they want to pass it on to their children. And I think that we're seeing huge polarization everywhere, aren't we? But I think there will always be people that want the hand-turned lamp. There will always be people that want the sourdough bread. There will be people that want it quickest, fastest, easiest, least effort. And, you know, they're not buying the online courses anymore. They're not buying the hand-turned lamps. You know, they're enjoying the white bread over here. But I think it comes back to thinking about who are we really talking to, sharpening up the messaging and focusing in on those people that really do want that craftsmanship.
I'm curious because I feel like you've done such a great job like translating your wisdom and experience into the book and into the courses, into the in-person trainings. And it sounds like you are kind of maybe ahead of the curve on a couple of these things.
I
talking
think
about
so.
the color theory stuff. I'm curious for someone who's like, okay, I've been doing the web design thing. I want to expand. Maybe I want to make a course or I want to get into making YouTube videos or something, but they feel like, well, now has everything been said? You know, have we run out of unique topics to talk about? What would you recommend for someone who's feeling that way?
So my biggest thing would be to say, hone your craft. So, you know, honing your craft, honing your aesthetic, and this, particularly in this age of AI, you know, the businesses that are thriving are the ones that are creating brands with personality, that are bespoke, that feel unique, that are something that whatever AI web platform you're using can't produce. And I feel that that translates very much across to having a voice, whether it's a podcast or a YouTube or an online course, is what is your unique space in the market? What's your unique take? Your work has to reflect where design's at now. So, you know, we can't be branding businesses that are going to last for 10, 20 years in the future and still have portfolios like they're stuck in the 90s. Like that's not going to work. But equally, there's never been less of a barrier to get into design. And it's very easy to make yourself look current just by reflecting the zeitgeist. And where that gets sticky is exactly what you're talking about, Sarah, which is it's then challenging to set yourself apart. It's then challenging to know what your voice really is. So there's no need to beat yourself up about that. That got you where you are, but where do you take it next? So that really is about thinking about your voice. What's your take on things? How would you do something differently? You don't have to be the noisiest to be the most fulfilled creatively or commercially.
One of the things that stops people is not always thinking that like there's everything that's been said, but there is this concept of just general perfectionism. People can be paralyzed by perfectionism. I don't want to release an online course because I don't like how my hair looks today, or because I don't have neon signs in my background and I need neon signs. That's what you do. What would you say to that? Is it more thinking about who you are and branding and niching? How do you prevent yourself from being paralyzed by perfectionism?
When you have skin in the game, you can't be perfectionist. I am more perfectionist than not, so it's definitely something that I'm mindful of, and I strive for excellence, but I don't let perfection cripple me. So a few things that help me. The first thing is, ever since I launched the Brand Stylist, I only worked in term times, which meant that I had 6 weeks and then I had a week off, and then 6 weeks and I had 2 weeks off, or 6 weeks off. So nothing sharpens the mind more than knowing that if you don't get this done, it's going to be hanging over your head. So when I was focused on building the online course library, I would always get a course live before, say, the summer holidays. And one lovely thing about that was then I had money coming in while I was off with my kids for 6 weeks. So that was freaking amazing. The next thing was knowing that it was good, like putting the checks and balances in to make sure it's good. So I would always finish my course 2 weeks before my holiday, and then we would go through it with a fine tooth comb and we would refine and we'd polish, so that I knew that when I launched it, it was the freaking nuts. So I never launched anything that didn't work. And that, then you get amazing feedback, and that then boosts your confidence for the next one. I know that doesn't help people that are just starting, but there is a lot to be said for it. In my experience, I'm not a psychologist, but in my experience, if something's telling you, oh, I don't know if this is any good, why is that? Is it just because of evil patriarchal conditioning? Or is there actually something in it that is telling you, slow the heck down and let's get this right?
Yeah. And I think really helpful giving yourself that deadline of I need to get this done by this week, and building in time multiple deadlines of this is draft 1, this is draft 2,
Yeah, momentum, pace, and also not making it an immovable deadline. So if it's just not good enough, then it's not good enough. But also if you're procrastinating right up till the day before, look at your deadline structure next time.
Well, Fiona, this conversation has been the nuts. To use a Britishism that I'm very fond of you just used. It's delightful, and thank you for, thank you from the perspective of every Circle partner who's going to be watching this. Thank you for continuing to publish your courses and your books, and just continue to be out there being an inspiration to all of us, and trying to find the good life in web design. So delighted always to have you on the show.
Thank you so much. I do love Squarespace, I should say. All of my websites are Squarespace.